Comercio Partners, which is one of Nigeria's licensed investment services firm, started out in 2016 as the country's first economic recession of recent history emerged. Nnamdi Nwizu, co-managing partner at the firm, joins me for a brief chat as his company waded through Nigeria's second economic recession of last year, 2020. Good evening, Nnamdi. Good to see you. Quite an interesting but very short history your investment firm has had. Let's get started this way on some of the current story. The World Bank, in the new report on Nigeria yesterday, asked the central bank to stop big corporate subsidized credit. What's your view on that?
Well, the World Bank had spoken not just about big credits, but also small credits, but small corporates. But if you look at what giving subsidized credit does, really. Some people look at it that you're basically giving money from the poor to the rich, because the funds being given to, or the subsidized credit being given to the big corporates could ideally have been used for smaller corporates or to help the masses. Then secondly, it might lead to underreporting of revs, because people want to ensure that they continue to qualify, for those for the subsidized credit. Now, if you look at all of that, you might say to yourself, look, those are some of the pitfalls, and ideally, this should be stopped. But if you look at it from the other side, the country is still struggling, just coming out of a recession, and we still need these things to sort of like boost the economy and boost those corporates that will end up creating jobs. So in as much as there are some pitfalls to the subsidized credit, I still think that it's something that the central bank has to continue doing in the short term.
But do you agree with the World Bank position that the NPLs, that's the non-performing loans to the Nigerian banking system, has been pressured?
Well, definitely, I believe so, because we know that there was some forbearance given to those who had received facilities from the central bank. And if you consider the fact that a lot of those people, based on the forbearance that they've been given, the moratorium for 1 year on principal repayment, reduction in interest rates, what it means is that typically we haven't seen the impact COVID has on the ability of some of those businesses to repay their loans. Now, we know that businesses are recovering and the economy is recovering, but some businesses will not be able to go back to the levels that they were at, prior to COVID. And by the time we start to see the effect, when the moratorium gets lifted, we'll definitely start to see a lot more with regards to the true position of things, and start to see the pressure start to build up on the corporates and on the LPLs of the various banks.
Well, as the saying goes, when the tide is out, we know who's been swimming naked. So talking about that forbearance of 2020 of the government and other stimulus, the World Bank advised that this be withdrawn in an orderly fashion. How do you think the authorities should do this? Do you think there should be an extension, and for how long?
Well, so first of all, I would not be in a hurry to lift all these forbearances and credits being given. Reason being, like I mentioned earlier, the economy is still struggling. However, whenever they do decide to lift it, then we have to ensure that it's done in an orderly fashion, possibly starting off, first of all, with sectors that we see have recovered fully from the effects of COVID and the COVID-ravaged economy. So you take it on a sector-by-sector basis, starting with those that have recovered the most, and then wait for the others that are still struggling to also recover. I mean, if you look at it globally, looking at the U.S. as a major example, you see that most central banks and most countries have, one way or the other, basically giving some sort of forbearance or credit or sort of quantitative easing to their corporates, and basically to help them survive the COVID-ravaged economy. So not a surprise that we are doing it, and we shouldn't be in a hurry to lift that.
Okay, let's talk about Comercio Partners. Your story so far on Nigerian market straight. Talk to me here, Nnamdi.
Well, so Comercio Partners started in 2016, funny enough, right in the middle of a recession, just like we're just coming out of one again. And it seemed pretty strange at that point in time that three friends would come together and decide to start their own investment firm right in the middle of a recession. So we got queried by so many people as to why, but we saw a gap, we saw a need in the market, especially with regards to the fixed income space, and we felt that, that gap needed to be plugged now rather than waiting until later. And we also decided that, or said to ourselves that, look, if we can survive in the middle of a recession and we're able to set up this firm and start to work out properly, then really when the economy picks up fully, then the sky will be the limit. So for us, it was a wonderful opportunity, and we're all happy and glad that we decided to go for it.
Yeah, here you were, went to the first recession in 2016 and another one in 2020.
Yeah.
What have you learned so far?
Well, first thing would have to be that when you look at the markets, whenever you have a recession, you have a dip in asset prices. And that's always an opportunity to buy. So I always remember a famous saying by Warren Buffett that buy when others are fearful. So at that point in time, or when you have recessions, you tend to see everyone scared and they all believe that the world is going to come to an end. But eventually things work out, one way or the other, and it always creates good opportunities, and that is the point where you see new millionaires or new billionaires being made.
Okay, so give me your playbook since inception to date. Have you shifted position on the fixed income space, looking at how yields on interest had come down from around 17, 18, nearly 20% elevated to around single digit?
Yeah, so rates have come down. On the Treasury bill side, we've seen rates from when we started, or when we kicked off Commercial Partners. We saw them crash as low as 1% last year before they started rising last year again. So another thing also about recession is that the central bank tends to try to stimulate the economy, and by doing that, they ensure you have excess liquidity in the system, which leads to asset prices or leads to sometimes what you call bubbles. So we saw bond yields go as low as 7% for 2050 maturities. We saw one-year Treasury bills going at 1% in a period of rising inflation. But however, we've started to see things normalize and correct, and we've seen the Treasury bill yields go back up to, there's an auction today where the one-year closed at 9.4, and we've seen the bond yields go back to late 13% levels. So eventually things are beginning to correct themselves.
Okay, here you are with a portfolio of trading, investment, advisory, real estate. Have you been able to balance these branches, as it were, over a 6-year period with exchange rate volatility, interest rate, and a whole lot of other issues, inflation within the Nigerian space?
So for us, we are 3 founding partners, and that helps us with the workload and helps us ensure that you have one person who is looking very effectively at the various arms of the business. For the property, we have some Esosa, who is the CEO for the property division, who is also helping us look after that and ensuring that we're putting the right things in place. Now, one thing that works for us as a partnership is always sitting down to discuss the steps that we're going to take. So even though, for instance, I oversee trading, I still sit down with my partners and we discuss trading strategy. And the same thing with Tosin on the asset management side and Steve on the advisory side. We sit down, we rub heads, rub minds, discuss, and try and forge, the best way forward. And the fact that you're leading a particular division doesn't necessarily mean that you always have the right answers. You need to learn to listen to your partners, learn to see their own point of view, and then at the end of the day, we all sit down and always look at the best way to move forward for every single segment of the business.
And I'm sure you folks have sat down to rub minds and put heads together. So what have you thought about the next 5 years? You had 5 behind you already.
Yeah, so for us, the plan when we started, and that's part of our vision, is to be a financial ecosystem. And we are glad that we've been able to achieve that to some extent, and it's to continue to grow that. So we've seen that for now, you have the property, you have trading, you have investments, and you also have the advisory business. And we're looking at adding a few more things that will complement this. We have our TradeFi, which is our fixed income retail platform. And at the same time, we're looking at going into trusteeship and opening a stockbroking arm, and basically looking for things that would ensure that we're like a one-stop shop for anyone who's looking for financial services.
I love the financial supermarket sound of it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We wish you all the best for you and the rest of your team in the years ahead. Nnamdi Nwizu, co-managing partner at Comercio.